as always, let me know what you think. It's a popular article, so it's not like, it should be accessible, but Charles Simic, the late great Serbian-American poet, was born in 1938 in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. In 1941, when Simic was 3, Hitler invaded and a bomb explosion hurled Simic out of bed. 3 years later, in 1944, another series of detonations exploded across town, this time dropped by Allies. Images of a war-torn country inform Simic's earliest memories. Belgrade had become a chessboard, a deadly battleground for both the Nazis and Allies. Simic emigrated as a boy to the United States, and he wrote poetry in English, but the hellish landscape of his youth lay at the heart of his work. I had a Serbian apartment mate at one point, and she lived through, some of the crap in from the 80s through the 90s, and it's bad sometimes, very bad war. Hey, Cinesemiacs, what's going on? We're reading this that chess article. That was it you that suggested last time? So let's see. Just started. Here's just some background on Simic and his leaving of Serbia after getting bombed during World War II. Simic was also a chess prodigy, and the game rewired his brain. As he wrote in the New York Review of Books, the kinds of poems I write, mostly short and requiring endless tinkering, often recall for me games of chess. They depend for their success on word and image being placed in proper order, and their endings must have the inevitability and surprise of an elegantly executed checkmate. When chess appears in literature, the game typically symbolizes some kind of escape, but for Simic, the chessboard is more tangible than the surreal hellscape around him. If chess is typically the figure for Simic, it's the ground. Chess is more real than reality. And I'll tell you, if you're doing philosophical logic or any sort of technical philosophy, and this is why, Evolve Yourself TV is, brilliant guy. He does the chess, but he also does the arguments. Your arguments in philosophy are strategic. Your definitions in philosophy. This is something someone said a long time ago to me. I forget who. Your definitions are strategic. The way you set up your arguments are strategic. And they're all positioning yourself to get to your conclusion. And that's kind of what you're doing in chess too. You're getting yourself into position that you may execute a strategy that or involves certain tactics that gets you to checkmate. And that's what you want. In philosophy, you want to get to the conclusion you want via your arguments, examples, and whatnot. And so it's he's doing this in poetry, which is interesting. But this is what a philosophical argument quite often looks like. It's setting up your pieces in the right way to get to the conclusion you want. And in some good advice from my ancient when I was taking ancient philosophy as an undergrad, he said you have to get all the philosophers early. If you let them get going on you, it's too late. You have to get them at the start. Otherwise, you're already dead. Because once it's set up, their conclusions are going to follow. And it's very rare that someone sets up a philosophical argument, or anyone who's worth their mettle in philosophy sets up an argument that just clearly fails. It does happen, but it's very rare. So yeah, speaking of chess, a tweet maybe? It's a handy allegory for so many aspects of life. For war, for love, for growing up, and perhaps especially for the art of writing itself. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Chess is an abstract strategy tabletop game played across a grid with no hidden information. That is, unlike a card game where other players don't know what's in their opponent's hands, all the components of play are always equally available to both players. Hey, Pink Lady, I hope you're having a good night too. The recorded history of chess goes back to the 7th century when a similar strategy game called Chaturanga emerged in India. The chess that we play today arose in Europe in the mid-15th century, and the rules became codified in the mid-19th. As long as people have played chess, it's also served as an excellent device in literature because it's a handy allegory for so many aspects of life, for war, for love, for growing up, and perhaps especially for the art of writing itself. So this is the chess prodigy and writer Charles Simic. Chaucer uses chess to animate a dream world. In the Book of the Duchess, one of Chaucer's earliest works, the narrator has been awake for 8 years. To while away the night, he demands that someone bring him Ovid's Metamorphoses. If he's going to be awake, he declares he'd rather engage his mind by reading about tales of kings and queens than then to play either at chess or tables, chess or backgammon. He eschews the simple distractions in favor of a conversation across generations. The strategy works, sort of. Reading promptly cures the narrator of his insomnia as he falls asleep after just one tale. But in his dream, chess comes to life. No longer a lifeless game, chess animates the characters in a stained glass window. A black knight bemoans the loss of his lady love, White, to a game of chess with fortune. And this is a recurring theme, of course. You can lose you can play chess against death. Has been a 20th century theme. Like you can somehow play for your life. Our literal-minded narrator implores the knight not to fret over a simple game, not realizing that the knight is speaking metaphorically. White has gone and he's lamenting his lost love. The knight's long ode to White dominates nearly the rest of the poem, trapping the narrator in the dream chess world. The knight transforms his lady love into a chess piece, therefore rejecting her death, and in a way, his long poem about her keeps her alive. No longer a static distraction, chess in the dream is an allegorical language of love. Although fortune has checkmated White, the knight can bring her back to a kind of life, as literary critic Jenny Adams points out when he envisions her as a chess piece, perpetually playing his game. Whether or not Chaucer actually knew how to play chess, as Margaret Connolly observes, or whether he only knew of it secondhand is debatable. Yet, as Guillemette, Bolins, and Paul Beekman Taylor argue, the point of chess in the poem isn't the game itself, but rather its symbolic function. The knight gets confused about the rules, but feels deeply the metaphorical impact of his queen being taken away from him. Our narrator, the dreamer, takes the discussion of the game too much to heart, so chess becomes a lesson in literary interpretation. Yeah. So, and now we're getting to our good old logician, Charles, I'm blanking on names, Dodgson. Chess thrives as both formal and symbolic conceit in the 19th and 20th centuries. Lewis Carroll's structures Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, as a chess problem. Alice, a famously bored 7.5-year-old, follows a simple trajectory to Chaucer's Dreamer. If you guys don't know, Lewis Carroll was a philosophical logician. Like, he was a formal mathematical logician. So working on, like, philosophical logic and math. And if you read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, you're going to see a lot of philosophy in there because that was his day job. And it's also thought that he may have been having an affair with Alice's mom because he had like a family friend with the kid Alice. And apparently something happened one day and he was not welcome back at the house. But it doesn't look like it was with the girl because people have suggested it was with the kid and he was like a pedophile. But it's looking more like he was having an affair with the mom based on latest research. Infernal, what's up? How you doing? So yeah. Lewis Carroll was a philosopher and he was sleeping with Alice's mom. Likely. Yeah, so while making up stories starring her kitten, Alice falls asleep in a living room chair and imagines herself traveling through the mirror above the mantelpiece, where she discovers the looking glass world is a giant game of chess. Since chess is a game of no hidden information, Carroll gives the full diagram to the reader in the beginning of the book and announces what moves each side will make. However, Carroll's also playing games with us, and Alice encounters plenty of characters with hidden agendas along her journey. While the book starts as a chess problem, chess becomes the metaphor guiding Alice's progression towards adulthood. So yeah, like, this is the thing. You can do chess logic. Like, you can actually set up the rules, like the rules of chess and different moves to represent logical functions. And this has been done in the 20th century. Smulyan is a logician who has books on, like, integrating logic and chess. So you can actually do this, like, formally if you want. Yeah, Dodgson was his name. You can look it up, or I can look it up real fast. Lewis Carroll name. Charles Ludwig Dodgson. So, yeah, Dodgson. What the tortoise said to Achilles. Yes, that's a famous philosophical work by Dodgson that was published in Mind in 1896. So, yeah. And that actually is still discussed today, that paper. Yeah, so like what the Tortoise said to Achilles is a famous paper by Dodgson, or he goes by Lewis Carroll, because he uses characters from Alice in Wonderland in the paper. It's published in the journal Mind, which we've read papers from here. And can we go over that one time? Yeah, sure. Like, it's only a few pages long, so we can definitely go over that. Fair warning, I've actually like know more about the argument at this point than I probably should, so we can get into the weeds a little bit. Okay. Chess might also serve as a horrific nightmare, an inescapable labyrinth. For T.S. Eliot, chess in the wasteland harkens to Jacobean dramatist Thomas Middleton's use of the game as a sign of emotional numbness. In Nabokov's The Luzin Defense, the narrator, a chess master, suffers mental breakdowns because of his obsession with the game. Indeed, playing chess to become a chess champion often connotes a mismatch between intelligence and maturity. The chess champion is like an etiolated succulent, straining for sunlight and suddenly stretched uncomfortably out of their skin. Like Beth Harmon in Walter Tevis's novel The Queen's Gambit and the Netflix adaptation of the same name. Simic is a poet of extremes, yet never black and white in thinking. His simple language and flat forms jetpack the reader into astonishment. Though chess underlies Simic's process, he rarely addresses the subject in the content of his poems. When he does refer to chess explicitly, his use of it underscores his flipped approach to the world. Simic's poem Prodigy from 1977 addresses chess directly. Each stanza is a single sentence that is a single chess move until the penultimate, where the speaker's mother checks him. I remember my mother blindfolding me a lot. He ducks the period only to be blindfolded again. She had a way of tucking my head suddenly under her overcoat. The under-over gesture folds the past and the present together. As a child, the speaker only saw the underside of the overcoat coming down to shield his vision. Now, from the vantage point of an adult looking back, he sees the scene in the mother's eyes, over the coat, to the horrors of war his mother wanted to protect him from seeing. Chess establishes both the horrors and inanities of war, the life and death stakes and battle pride juxtaposed against the cruel banality of innocent lives being surrendered. But chess, unlike war, is a game of perfect information. In the set we were using, Simic writes, the paint had almost chipped off, the black pieces. The rendering the sides nearly indistinguishable from each other. Though the game's stakes are life and death, the players themselves, the humans on the battlefield, are indistinguishable from each other, brother fighting brother. For Simic, chess is not the symbol but the reality. The world itself is too horrific to be real. Quote, I'm told but do not believe that the summer I witnessed, men hung from telephone poles. End quote. Simic's tiny poem, Evening Chess, encapsulates both the urgency and the pain of this game. What's up? Thanks for the lurk, Leon. Appreciate the lurk. The Black Queen raised high in my father's angry hand. Yeah, it's a little scary right there. The Black Queen raised high in my father's angry hand. I forgot I put that, be safe, don't get caught in. Laughing at my own joke now. It's bad. Simic was also a prodigious translator, and his description of the Serbian poet Vasco Popa's process also illustrates the way in which chess is a process. The ability to see all the moves in advance as a grandmaster can. Yeah, like if you go over to Evolve Yourself TV's stream, we should give him a shout out in a minute, but like you can talk chess and he will go through what the progression of the game will be, because you can already tell, because you've got all the information right there. It's a difference between games of perfect information and games of imperfect information. Chess is a game of perfect information. You can see all the pieces, and you know what is worth more. You know the values, or at least relative values of the pieces, pretty much during certain phases of the game. So you can know exactly what needs to happen. If you don't have that information, you don't know what needs to happen, so you can make a move, and you don't know the value of any of your moves, so you don't know exactly what's going to happen, or you can't predict, at least. Quote, Popa himself had already thought out everything he was going to write over the rest of his life, Simic writes. Late one night, after much wine, he described his future poems to me in full detail. I assumed that this was just the wine talking, but not so. In the following years, I would see his poems come into print, and they were pretty much as he had described them that night. When reality is too surreal for the imagination to witness, chess is not an artificial escape, but a way of attempting to establish enough of a solid ground to keep living. Is that it? Okay, that was it. See, I was arguing this the other day. When you can't actually explain your world, you will rationalize rationality. That's what you're doing. You will say, I can't explain my life, but I have to do something. They are imposing a structure of chess onto the rest of their future because that's what they were able to do. That doesn't make it good or bad, rational or irrational. It's irrational. It's just the strategy they were using. This is an interesting last point. When reality is too surreal for the imagination to witness, chess is not an artificial escape, but a way of attempting to establish enough of a solid ground to keep living. You see, it's not rational, it's not irrational, it is just an attempt that is neither of those to keep yourself going. So, a little intense, yeah. I was not expecting this level of I didn't know that they were going to be talking when I walked into this about wartime. But chess is a game of war. But still, we're dealing with wartime and sort of rationalizing things that, aren't so happy. And so it's the fact that this guy had actually planned out the rest of all of his work in his life, he already knew all the things. It's is this you think people would change over time, but he knew enough that it didn't matter. So Pink Lady said, cool. Since Semiac says, when the metaphor becomes more believable than the reference. Yeah, this is exactly it. And it's the chess itself is more sophisticated than a simple metaphor because it's a game, and so it's already something interactive. That reminds me much of Through the Looking Glass. Well, they referenced Through the Looking Glass. I mean, existential as heck, yes. But I mean, this was the whole point. And like I said, Dodgson, Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice Going Through the Looking Glass, and from Through the Looking Glass, he's a philosopher. He knows this stuff. He does know this. He was on top of philosophy things. So it's a cool little paper. It's popular, but as you said, it had an existential punch to it. Speaking of, we could give this a little ranking. I'd love to just say, hey, worth. You know what? Let's do that. If you want to do it, I'm gonna do a little quick ranky thingy here. I'm gonna say, yeah, this is existential as fuck. So you're getting the Nog Scream. Let's do a few of those. Let's give this 3 and a 1 Ouroboros, because it deals with scary things too. Actually, yeah, this is a lot of fun, but it's a popular article. So let's give it a Nog Brain Dance. No, that's just Brain Dance. DCI gives it an Ouroboros. I can't spell is my problem. There we go. Gets I'm gonna start ranking things I think out of 5, and we'll get this will get you some vote yays also. So this gets so we're gonna do things out of 5, I think, maybe going forward. I don't know. But if anyone else wants to get in a ranking, go right ahead. You don't have to, of course. If you do, you will be enshrined in the Philosophy Roulette review that is forthcoming. So DCI, I'll say DCI gave us 1 Ouroboros. You like my current ranking? Thank you. Appreciate that. I mean, it's a pop article, so it's it's gonna be more fun. It's just new. Take some time to sell in. This is one of the hardest things to do, is to get people to act in a way this is why signage is so important. How do you get people to understand information quickly? People, yeah, as you say, people don't know what they want. People don't know what it takes people time to understand things. That's fine. I do this stuff in real time, but I'm a little weird. I know this, and it's that's it. Vote yay. I wonder why that didn't work for you. If you hit tab, but I'll fix that later, Cinesemiotics. If if it doesn't show up, it won't show up because everything's capitalized. The Y has to be. This is so annoying. Yeah, like it has to be like a capital Y in the vote yay. But yeah, I wonder if I should change the algorithm so it doesn't matter if it's capitalized correctly. Yeah, I can fix that in my bot. Yeah, I know, but it's like I didn't actually do that yet. But thank you. Okay, thank you for your rankings. I appreciate Semiotics and DCI Banks jumping in on this because this is a short little article, but yeah, this is now a self-ref. You are dealing with someone who does philosophical logic and